Hi, this is Judy from the bungalow. Would you love to make this fun tree pillow covering? It's a pillow covering for a 20-inch pillow that I got from IKEA. It's one of those IKEA feather pillow inserts is what it is. And I made the covering for the outside. I love the way that it is a Christmas tree, but it doesn't scream country Christmas tree, right? It's more of a modern interpretation of a Christmas tree. So stick with me and watch how easy and fun it is to make this. Here we go. Okay, so apparently I have to back up a skosh and just explain to you why I have two pairs of glasses on, because I'm sure my adult daughters would see this video and say, Mother, did you realize you had two pairs of glasses on? And I would have to say yes, because when they call me on the phone and FaceTime me, they have to remind me that I have two sets of glasses on. These are never close enough, but yet when I look up, I have to see far away. So I'm constantly switching my glasses out. So much for that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so what you're going to need for this project is your 20-inch IKEA pillow form. You can, if you don't like feather pillows, get one with polyfill. I really like the feather pillows. You're going to need your rotary cutter and your rotary cutter ruler and your mat. And you're going to need 6 or 7 different greens, probably about a quarter yard. And those will be cut into 2.5-inch strips. So, don't short yourself. If you maybe need to get something like 1/3 of a yard or a little more than 1/3 of a yard, don't sell yourself short with not getting enough variety. You might want to find some that you have with your quilting bestie. You might want to trade some out or whatever. And then you're going to need fat quarters of about 5 different background prints. Okay. You're going to need a piece of batting that is 20 inches by 20 inches. And you're going to need about 5/8 of a yard. There's my piece of batting. It's 80-20. Okay, it's just 80-20. And then you're going to need woven fusible cotton interfacing. You're going to need about 2/3 of a yard of that. And then you're going to need a 2/3 of a yard of a fabric for a backing for the pillow, and a 22-inch zipper that matches. Okay, so let's get started with the first step. The first step is going to be to cut your piece of batting and your woven fusible interfacing into squares. Okay, so this is going to be cut into a 21-inch square, and you're going to cut 2 squares of woven fusible interfacing. Okay, so I'm starting out with an IKEA pillow form that measures 20 inches by 20 inches. I love these. They're the ones that have the feather filling. I know a lot of people are allergic to feathers, so you'd have to find something with a polyfill, but it measures 20 inches by 20 inches. I don't like my pillow cases that are covering the pillow to be too loose. And so I'm going to cut my woven fusible cotton interfacing 21 inches by 21 inches because I plan to use like a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is woven fusible, and I have 2 squares, 21 inches by 21 inches. That's where I'm going to start. So the next thing I've cut is a piece of quilt batting, that same size. I've cut it 21 inches by 21 inches. Just regular quilt batting. This is poly cotton, 80-20, and I've cut it to the exact same size as the woven fusible interfacing. And I'm going to go to the iron and I'm going to fuse that woven fusible interfacing onto this one side. And then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to iron and fuse the second piece of woven fusible onto the opposite side. This will give me my base for my pillow. Okay, so I've got my woven fusible cotton interfacing sandwiching the batting. So it's on the back, it's on the front, it's been ironed on, and in between I have batting. So this is going to be the front side of the pillow. So because I want this just to be a suggestion of a tree, I don't want it to be like a Christmas tree hit you in the face pillow. I just want it to be a pillow that when people look at it, they think of a tree. So we're not going to have background in it. We're just going to have the green pieces. And I love unusual colors at Christmas so much that once I do this one, I think I'm probably going to do a pink one as well. Okay, now you're going to take one of your pieces of green fabric and you're going to cut a 5.5-inch square or a 6.5-inch square, somewhere in there, and you're going to cut it on the diagonal. All right, you're going to cut it so that we have 2 triangles, but we're only going to need 1, unless you make another pillow. Then save that for that. All right, so then take your little sandwich. See how nice that is, that I ironed that all, and it's this nice little sandwich. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see how truly messy my sewing table is. I'm going to put this triangle right there. I am going to eyeball it, put it in the middle, okay? Now remember I said that your fabric needed to be cut into strips, 2.5-inch strips. So I'm going to take a 2.5-inch strip. I'm going to take a 2.5-inch strip and I am going to lay it right sides together with this triangle. And I'm going to make sure that this edge lines up with this edge and this edge lines up with this edge. And then I'm going to pin it and stitch a 1/4-inch seam. Now, what you're going to do, it's a stitch, and this is the best thing about this is that it's quilt as you go. So you're going to have this really cool quilted front for your pillow. And you're going to sew right through all of these layers. So we're going to pin, stitch, and flip. All right. So this is going to eventually get flipped, right? And ironed. So when you do that, you don't want to come up short over here. Right over here, you don't want to cut this off so that when you wouldn't want to cut it off here, because when you flipped it, then you'd be shorting it and you'd have this big open white space. So what you want to do is you want to cut it off down here somewhere. Give yourself enough here. Cut it off down here somewhere. So you give yourself enough room so that you're not shorting this and making a boo-boo. So I'm going to cut it way down here. And then I'm going to put another pin in there. I'm going to stitch a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And I'm going to flip it and iron it. Okay, did I mention that you're supposed to be using your walking foot? Yes, you're supposed to be using your walking foot when you do this. So then you're going to take this and you're going to line up this edge here and line up this edge here. Make it nice and straight. And then you're going to stitch. Well, we're going to start stitching here. We're always going to start stitching here. So I'm going to put my needle in this direction, or my pin in this direction. And we're going to stitch again with your walking foot on your sewing machine. 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way down here. Now look how close I came here to when I flipped it to almost not having enough. So like I said, don't short yourself. You're going to end up having problems. I know you might think it's kind of wasteful, but you are going to use the shorter pieces left over from the strip too. So I'm going to stitch this, I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to flip it over and iron it. Okay, now I'm going to take another strip and I'm going to line it up even with this side and even with this edge. Now I've got some smaller strips here that I have left over from another project and they will work out just perfect. They're 2.5-inch strips. So let's pin this. Pin here. And I'm going to put one more pin in and go back to the sewing machine, stitch a 1/4-inch seam with my walking foot and flip. Okay, here is my next strip. Oh God, I just love this rifle paper fabric. I absolutely love it. So this is kind of like a little log cabin kind of exercise. It really is a lot like making a log cabin quilt. It's really basically a braid quilt is what it is. But what I love about it is that it is a tree. It looks like a tree and it's subtle enough. We're not making an actual tree, but it looks like a tree and it doesn't have to be a tree with a tree trunk, you know, and looking very, you know, kind of countryish. I want it to look more suggestive of a tree and a little bit more modern. All right, so now I'm going to stitch 1/4-inch with my walking foot right along there and flip and iron. Okay, now here's my next piece of green. It's on this side this time, and I'm going to use something that reads a little bit more like a solid because I've got all these prints going on, and once in a while I'm going to need some eye rest. So I'm giving myself some eye rest here before it gets way too busy, and then you can't really see that it's a tree. So a little bit of eye rest here, and maybe a little bit more eye rest over here. Maybe I will put this one in it, a repeat of this right here, because that's going to iron that, but that's going to give it a little more eye rest there, and then I can start out with more prints. And you want a variation in print scale too. You want some larger prints and some smaller prints too. Okay, so now we've got the whole base. We've got this one whole side covered, right? But that's not going to change what we do. We're just going to continue to lay strips on here, and we're going to keep going until we get to almost to the top with this peak. So the fact that we've got this all done on this end here doesn't change the fact that we're just going to continue to lay strips on here, and then keep going like that. So that doesn't change. But where we're going to stop is when the peak is very close to the top. Where the peak is close to the top, then we're going to stop with the green strips. Okay, so now we're at the top with the green. We've got it all the way down to the bottom and up the sides to the point where we're at the top. Now, it'd be better if this didn't come all the way to the top, but mine did. Yours might come down to here, or it might go all the way to the top, because now I really don't want to cut that point off. We're going to start adding the neutral background strips on the sides. And we will do a 1/4 inch seam here and here, so we theoretically won't cut off that point if we make a 1/4 inch seam, but, you know, it's going to be at the top of your pillow. It is what it is, but it would probably be better if it was slightly lower. They're all going to turn out a little bit different because this is so improv-y. So the next thing we're going to do is lay 2.5 inch strips. Remember I said you had to get pieces of neutrals and cut those as well into 2.5 inch strips. All right, and that's where those are going to go along here and along here. Okay, so here's my first neutral strip, and I did the same thing to this that I did to the green ones before, and laid it along here, and then I'm going to stitch it and flip it, and then I'm going to put another one on this side this next time, and keep going back and forth just like with the green ones. Okay, here's my next neutral one over here. Now remember, when you're sewing these together, you're using your walking foot. And I forgot to mention earlier that you should turn your stitch length up to about a 3.5. I know on my Bernina, I normally sew at a 2.5. When you're doing thicker things like this, you should turn your stitch length longer. All right, so now I'm going to stitch that and flip that out. Okay, our whole thing is now finished, and it looks kind of messy. So we're going to flip it over and we're going to trim it so that it is back to being a somewhat close to a 21 by 21 inch square. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to do the back. The back, I'm going to teach you how to do a zipper flap, because a zipper flap is perfect if you really are going to lay on this pillow and you don't want somebody putting their greasy face on the front of the pillow. You want them to lay on the back of the pillow. You don't want a zipper digging into their face. So if anybody's actually really going to take a nap on this pillow, you're going to want to do a zipper flap. All right, so now I'm just going to trim these all off, either save them for a different project or toss them or save them for somebody else who works with teeny tiny little scraps. And I'm going by my woven fusible as my true, to true it up, because that isn't going to get distorted the way that the batting does. All right. All right, and then this last side. All right, so we're going to do a zipper flap. Now, when you do a zipper flap, you're going to need the amount of fabric that is the size of your pillow plus quite a few inches. So if my pillow is 21 inches by 21 inches, which it is, 21 by 21, I want my backing fabric to be about 23 to 24 inches wide by probably something that's 6 inches more off of that end and 6 inches more off of this end. So we want about 24 inches this way. This is 21, remember? So we want something 24 inches, 23, 24 inches, and then 12 inches longer. So something that's 24 inches by 12 inches longer than 21. So that would be 21, 31, 32, 33 inches. So you need a rectangle, 33 inches by about 24 inches of backing fabric. All right. So let's get that. So that means that you need 2/3 yard, like I said initially, of backing fabric, which is 24 inches. Okay, so here is 24 inches by width of fabric, okay? I'm going to cut it to be 24 inches by about, what did we say, 33 inches, okay? So I'm going to cut off an end of it, and we'll leave that for scraps. Okay, now here's the crease where it was folded on the bolt. So I'm just going to use that crease, and I'm going to cut along that crease. I'm going to cut this piece of fabric into 2 pieces along that crease. Might as well. And then I'm going to iron both of my pieces of fabric. Maybe put a little spray starch on them so they're a little bit stiff. Okay, now one of these pieces is bigger than the other. Here's my smaller piece. Here's my larger piece. And this is the 24 inches across this way. All right, so I'm going to get my serger, go to my serger, and I'm going to serge the edge, one edge of this, and I'm going to serge this edge as well. I'm going to finish off those edges. If you don't have a serger, you can turn them under 1/4 inch and make a small 1/4 inch hem on there. But I'm just going to run it through my serger. Okay, I've run one long edge of the shorter piece and one edge of the longer piece through the serger, or you could hem them, like I said. And you should have a little bit of woven fusible interfacing left, about 3 inches. And what I'm going to do is I am going to fuse this to this shorter piece here. I'm going to fuse it where I have my serger finish on the wrong side, okay? On the wrong side of this, I'm going to fuse this woven fusible interfacing all the way across here to give it some more stability, okay? I'm going to fuse that piece onto the smaller piece of the backing. Now, let's briefly talk about the anatomy of a zipper, okay? This is my 22-inch zipper, all right? This is the zipper pull. This is the zipper tape. This is the right side or the front of the zipper. These are the zipper teeth. And this is the wrong side, the back side of the zipper, okay? All right, so now we have the words that I'm going to be using all cleared up so that you won't have a misunderstanding, hopefully. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to fold this edge that I have interfaced over about, let's see, what is that? About 2 inches. We're going to make a 2-inch fold, and then I'm going to press that 2-inch fold with the iron. I'm going to press it, fold it over 2 inches. Okay, so now I've pressed this down. I'm going to take my zipper and I'm going to put it right sides down, face down, along the serger hem, or whatever hem you put there, along the serged edge or whatever hem you put there. And I'm going to put it like this right along the edge. Okay, my zipper is going to go right along this edge, and this is wider, so I'm going to kind of center it here. This is actually wider than what I need it to be. Remember, we made it wider. So I'm going to my zipper is face down, and I've kind of centered it. Now I'm going to pin this edge, not this edge, this edge. So it's face down along the finished off edge on the shorter piece or the smaller piece, centered, and I'm going to pin along this edge. Okay, so now with my zipper foot on my sewing machine and my needle moved over to the appropriate side, I'm going to stitch the zipper to this part of the pillow back. What I'm going to do is unzip this a little ways and then I'll zip it back up again. So this is what we do. We stitch this side of the zipper tape. I'm going to back stitch a little bit because this will be a little bit under stress. And I'm going to stay right in the middle of the zipper tape. Some of the zipper tapes actually have lines down the center so that you can see where to stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to pull my, there we go. Now I don't really have to stitch around anything. I'm going to stitch this all the way to the end. This is going to be one of the easiest zippers you've ever put in. But zippers in garments are always a lot more difficult than a zipper in a bag or in a pillow. All right, so now you can see that we have the zipper under what will be underneath that flap. Now we just need to get this side sewn to the other half of our pillow back. Okay, so now the other half of our pillow back, the other piece of it, it's not half, but is going to go right sides together. Now you see how that zipper is underneath there? See how it's underneath that flap, okay? And now you're going to put the right sides together with this zipper tape, making sure that this edge of the fabric is lined up with the fabric underneath. Okay, we need to line these up and then we're going to pin the zipper tape to the serged edge of the other side of the pillow back. All right. So watch me as I pin that. We're going to match up these sides. Keep this out. Don't get this caught in there. Keep that flap out so it doesn't get caught in there. Now you won't see, because you're going to be stitching from this side, you won't see your zipper teeth. So you're going to feel with your finger and just pretty much stay in the center of that zipper tape by feel. I know that it sounds great because I've been doing this for a bazillion years. And you may not have been, but you can feel where the zipper teeth are. And you know to keep your needle away from that then. Okay, so I'm going to pin down this whole thing. And I'm going to take it back to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch down the side here. I'm going to stitch this and avoid the zipper teeth. Okay, so keep this flap away. Keep this flap away. Okay, so now I'm going to have to move my needle over to the other side of that zipper foot because I'm sewing on this side of the zipper tape. I don't want to break a needle. All right. My mother would have told me to hand baste this. She would have said, don't take a chance of the pins holding all that. You should be hand basting that. See, I'm feeling with my finger and I'm keeping that other flap. I kept the other flap away, feeling the zipper teeth with my finger. So I'm staying far enough away from them. And going right down the middle of that zipper tape. we're gonna actually be laying this whole thing out, and we'll do it right sides together with the main pillow. Because remember, this is bigger than the main pillow. So we're going to stitch around the main pillow, and then in the end we'll cut off all the extra. So now, do you see I have this here. So I'm leaving my needle stop down. I'm going to unzip it right past there. There. And I can feel where that zipper tape is, or the zipper teeth. There we go. And I'm going to back stitch a little bit. Okay, so let's see what we've got now. Now we've got this excellent looking zipper flap. Where the zipper is covered up, and you could easily take a nap on this pillow. So we're going to top stitch this down. We're going to press this and then top stitch along that edge just to keep it nice and flat. And you'll have a nice zipper flap so that you, if you want to take a nap on this pillow, your head's not digging into the zipper. Okay, so now I've moved my needle again over to the other side. And I'm going to top stitch along this edge. Now, somebody asked me the other day, what does top stitching mean? Why is top stitching different than regular stitching? Well, it's not. It's just that top stitching implies that you're stitching on the top of the right side of the fabric. And so technically you're going to want it to look nicer. There are such things called top stitching needles for your sewing machine, and those are usually for garment sewing, and that means that it's going to have a different size eye in the needle so that your decorative threads aren't getting shredded. So top stitching just implies that you're stitching on the top or the right side of something, and usually that implies that you want it to look nicer. So this is top stitching here because I'm on the right side of the fabric and I want this to look nice, right? So that's what top stitching is. Okay, so let's go and lay this out so we can see exactly how this all looks. Looks pretty good. I'm liking this a lot. Okay, let's look at this as a whole now. Okay, so now there's my zipper underneath the flap. All right, and it zips and unzips nicely. Very nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unzip this and leave it partly open like that. And then I'm going to take some thread, a needle and a thread, and I'm going to baste these ends together. I'm going to stitch those ends together with a needle and a thread, and I'll show you why. Okay, so I have a needle and I have it double threaded. By double threaded, that means not that you have two pieces of thread in it, but one piece of thread, and you've joined the one piece of thread with the other side of it down here in a knot. Okay, so you put one piece of thread through and you brought it down to match up to the other side of the thread, and you've knotted it. And so then you are going to stitch this together. These two zipper ends need to come together. And they need to stay together because we're going to be sewing across this zipper, and we don't want them splayed apart and splayed open. Don't catch the flap in here, and don't catch the fabric in here. This is all going to be cut off later, but we need to keep the zipper well approximated. Okay. You only need to do it a couple of times because we're just holding it together. That's all we're doing. Okay, we're just holding it together. All right, and then we're going to leave this open a little ways. Now we're going to put our front of our pillow. Let me see if I can get this up a little higher so we can see better. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah, great. You can see how messy my sewing table is. It's always a mess. creation is a messy process. It's not a neat process. All right, so this was our pillow top that we so nicely trimmed, so beautifully, and it's smaller than the pillow back, which is exactly what it's supposed to be like. It's supposed to be smaller. It's kind of like a quilt backing when you're making a quilt, right? So let me clear out some of this mess. And all right, there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pin all the way around the perimeter. Okay, we're going to pin it and sew it closed. Pin all the way around this perimeter. You're looking at my table going, why does she even have that stupid triangle sitting there? I don't know. I've got so much crap all over my sewing table. But I'd rather spend time sewing than cleaning. So that's my life. All right. Okay. So we're going to pin all the way around the perimeter of this pillow. And then we're going to stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance with our walking foot. Okay, so now when you sew all the way around that outer perimeter, you don't have to leave an opening because you've got the zipper open, so you can turn it right sides out through that. But you want to be very, very, very careful when you come to this part here, right? Because there's metal under there. There's that metal end of the zipper. So you're going to sew, that should not be in your line of sewing. You're going to be sewing way over here. But really be careful that you don't have metal underneath your needle. You might even want to walk your machine, and what that means is that you don't use your foot pedal and just go zoom right across it. You take the wheel of the hand wheel part of your machine and you turn it just till you get across this part. And the same thing on this side. Okay, your metal from your zipper is right here. So you shouldn't be getting close to it, right? You should be way the heck over here when you're sewing. All right, so just be really, really careful when you're sewing across zippers. So now I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to sew, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. I suppose 1/4 inch because this is going to be kind of close. I don't want to cut off that tip right there. So I'm going to sew to the edge of this in the way that I don't have to cut off that tip in such a way. And I'm going to make stitching all the way around the whole perimeter. I'm going to increase my stitch length once again because I'm sewing through a lot of thicknesses, and I'm going to use my walking foot. Okay, so now let's view this from the wrong side. So here's my zipper, which will be on the inside, and here's my front of my pillow. So now I'm going to trim all of this off. But what I'm going to do is when I get to this point right here, I'm going to switch to my junk scissors because I don't want to use my good scissors to cut the edge of the zipper. And over here, I'm going to use my junk scissors because I don't want to cut the zipper with my good scissors, right? All right, and then we're going to turn it right sides out once we've done that and see how great it looks. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm going to trim off these little points right here because they're going to be bulky and I want my pillow to have sharp points. Okay. And I opened the zipper a little bit more so I could turn this right sides out. Nice sharp points. So now you know how to do a zipper flap. So you don't even have to do a pieced front to your pillow. You can just do one solid quilted front out of some fabric that's cute and do a zipper flap. I have done this zipper flap video before on YouTube. Just updated it a little bit. I've not made any changes. It's the same as the last one. Let's poke those corners out. Should use a turning bodkin to poke these corners out. It's going to be good. All right. Look at that. Look at that nice zipper flap. Now this isn't matched up. I was not going to drive myself crazy. I know a lot of people would have. I'm not going to. There we go. Isn't that adorable? Now I'm going to go put my IKEA pillow inside of here. Okay, so here it is. Isn't that cute? It's subtle, it's modern looking. It doesn't look like a country looking tree with a trunk and all this stuff. It just looks like it's the suggestion of a tree. It's just so pretty, and you're using Christmas fabric. You don't have to use Christmas fabric. You could use any fabric. But here's the zipper flap on the back so that you can actually take a nap on it without hurting your face on the pillow or on the zipper, right? And you don't have to have your face on the front side. Isn't that cute? I just love it. I think I'm gonna make another one right away out of pink because I love pink at Christmas. So thanks for watching.